Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Online Summit. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand this time. And our next speaker is a fascinating woman who is coming also from New Zealand. So it's a great honor to have you with us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude. Hello, everyone. My name is Mandy Lacy. I'm based in beautiful Waihi Beach, New Zealand. I'm 59 years old, and I'm wanting to talk to you today about creative oxygen for your soul, well-being, balance, and joy from my own experience of that. But first of all, these are things that I never knew. So did you know that just by looking at art has major benefits for your mental, physical, and spiritual well-being? Or that the act of creating visual art can have a profound effect on your well-being? You know, it's been found that people who spend time creating visual art actually showed more psychological resilience, which is our ability to cope with negative emotions and remain functional during times of stress. So there's so many numerous health benefits to creativity. Boosts your recollection skills, it sharpens your mind, it's been found to promote critical thinking. And most profoundly, that even from looking at art and being creative actually increases the blood flow to your brain and oxygen of up to 20% to the reward center in the brain. And this also lowers stress and anxiety, which I'll tell you about my story about this, but I think these facts are really phenomenal. And after 45 minutes of being creative, it significantly lowers your cortisol levels. So regardless of your skill level, which is great news, so whether you're a beginner or very accomplished, there's actually no difference to the positive impact and outcomes of being creative. And in many ways, art making and being creative are now considered as exercise for the brain that brings similar benefits as what physical exercise to the body does. So any experience of beauty, visualization, musical, literally benefits the decision-making areas in our brain, which is amazing. So essentially, art making and creativity are thought to be as key to keeping our minds lucid and flexible throughout our life and well into age. So as I was saying, I didn't know a lot about these facts until I was recently writing my own book around creative oxygen for your writing soul. And where that came from is when I was doing a major writing project, a PhD. You know, I've struggled with academic writing. I was late to academia. Learning to do academic writing was very challenging for me. And however, what I'd started doing in my workplaces was, or my places of writing, is I always had an art station that I could just get up and go to. So it was, you know, my areas were typically busy. Some people might call them messy. but I would find I'd have lots of energy at all different times of the day and night. So some days I'd, wake up at 3 in the morning and I'd be writing, and then I may come across having an impasse, not knowing what to write, or a blank or a block, and I'd get up and I'd start painting. And typically I would have 2 or 3 canvases on the go. Sometimes I'd paint absent-mindedly, just thinking I'll put in a phthalo blue wash over that while I was thinking about what I wanted to write. And sometimes I would paint quite intentionally. The reason for having a couple of canvases on the go is I was never like wasting paint either. So it was, however, what occurred to me was when I started doing this, I just couldn't, it felt like, wow, it felt like I'd opened a window and let a whole bunch of fresh air in. And I thought, there's something in this creative oxygen. And I started noticing, I became interested in what was I producing, and did that have any connection to what I was doing at the time? So I started writing on the side of paintings. And some of those titles were like research plan, or the literature review, or research analysis findings. And others were like hope, trepidation, and excitement, walking through the redundancy forest, because I was working as well as doing my PhD, which, as you can imagine, was a lot to juggle, and being made redundant. I really took it badly and found it hard to cope. However, it was the research and the painting that really were catalysts for keeping me going and being expressive. So being able to paint or do a painting to express what I was going through in terms of, it was like walking through the redundancy forest. So it was sort of dark blues and blacks and red, sort of in terms of my feeling so wounded. However, I did put lots of light in it, because I knew that through this process, there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel. Another painting was called The Road of Shadows and Light, the yin and the yang. Why on earth am I doing this? Isn't this exciting? That flip-flopping all the time. Another one was presenting to others. And that was important in terms of, the exposure of presenting your work to others, like your colleagues, your peers, were very supportive. Senior academics could be very critical. However, that made, it was, the question often was given was, so what? Like, so, as you presented more, you got yourself more prepared to be able to answer that question of, well, so what? So you've found this thing, or this is interesting, it's so what? So it made for more robustness. Another painting was called Trusting the Process. The Love and the Hate. Why on earth am I doing this? And one of my final ones in that series, not that I realized it was a series at the time, was called Made It, like finishing and being out the other end, and how that was a wee bit of an anticlimax in some ways, like wonderful feeling to have completed such a major project. And then it was kind of, well, there's no huge fanfare. And getting back into the normality of life after such a big project too, it took a year or more, 18 months, was quite a transition. So the stories of these paintings of what I've written about, and it was from that I thought I'm going to look at, because I knew a wee bit, having been a educator, teacher in organizational psychology at universities and in the workplace, I knew about the left-right brain thinking, which has been a wee bit debunked by the new or the latest neuroscience, which is some of those questions and statements I made at the beginning of this talk, is that that there's so much research going on in this area, and especially in relation to creativity, around how it does increase the blood flow and oxygen to the brain, and it has so many benefits to our well-being. I think Pablo summed it up really beautifully. I love what he says when he says, art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. And yes, for me, really think it does. So you might be thinking, well, being creative needs to be that you need to be a painter. That's not the case. It's anything that you want it to be. It's anything that gives you pleasure, joy, happiness, peace, and space to express yourself. So, that could be dancing, gardening, musing, music, cooking, sewing, sculpturing, photography, storytelling, surfing, running, meditation, exercise, pottery, poetry. The list is endless. It's what lights your fire, what ignites you. And sometimes we don't know that at the beginning. We need to try a few things, have a go at lots of different things. I'll talk about that in a bit more in a moment. But where my creativity began, and I didn't know it at the time, but when I look back, I now realise that I had the creativity sort of royalty of childhoods, really. I grew up in rural New Zealand, centre of New Zealand, or central New Zealand, I should say, to parents that were both post-war children, which I guess people my age, that's standard. And they came with an ethos or an imprint or a blueprint, if you like, of simply living on the smell of an oily rag, and they still do. So it's which was significant because having had the privilege of growing up on a sheep and beef farm, we had the house cow. That was where our milk came from. There were chooks and pigs, and of course there's stock on the farm. There was a huge all-round veggie garden, which was our grocery store, because we lived a long way out of town, and we never went there that often. My mother was an amazing seamstress, creative. She was interested in all things creative, really, macrame and needle stitch, and we knew how to sew our own clothes, and she was creative, and she had a beautiful garden, and it was all from cuttings. I don't ever remember going to a garden centre. And a fabulous, she was very creative in the kitchen and cooking too. And my dad was very subtle teacher of all things rural, and we all had horses. He was beautifully kind to animals. And he was a wonderful teacher. He was a beautiful singer, and he was a great observer of people and understander of people. So as I mentioned, none of this at the time I thought consciously of, wow, this is such a great imprint for thinking about being creative. A lot of those things were just deemed essential for running a home, raising a family, running a farm, work, all those sorts of things. But another significant factor to all of that was that our outings always were to friends and family, and it always includes the elements of, well, especially from the women folk, of sharing recipes, sharing patterns, taking garden clippings, getting garden clippings, walking around the garden, talking about how things were, looking at the veggie garden, and always around the beautiful homemade produce. So it was even talking about it, it was so rich, yet it was very subtle, and there wasn't a conscious thing to have for it to be about creativity. But for me, it had such an impact, and it was from there that, throughout my life, I've sought all sorts of different experiences, either by looking or doing. To when my children were little, I was a sewer, and I loved doing all of those sorts of things, pressing flowers and making my own Christmas cards and all sorts of things. And then, of course, what happens is life takes over with children and work and family and relationships and running a home and all the things that happens, and they sort of fall to the wayside. Well, for me, it fell to the wayside for quite a few years. However, I knew it was bubbling away. I just knew there was lots of creativity, and I knew that there was something in it deep down that just gave me a lot of happiness and sense of self. So in the beginning, I didn't know where to start. to get back in touch with that. However, it was through various experiences of giving a few things a go that key illuminations surfaced. And those are what I'd like to share with you today, because I think if you too are wondering, where on earth do I start? My life's so busy, so full. I feel like the hamster on the wheel. What I want to offer you now is some easy steps that you could do today that will get you going, will ignite your creativity fire inside of you. So one of the first things I think is really important is that you don't already have to be creative. You don't have to be an artist. Being creative is part of your soul. It's part of your expression, and that's what's important. So there's no better time than now to letting that go and acknowledging that it's okay to begin right at this moment where you are. And one of the first things that I did was, be inspired by others. And one of the ways that I think that you could do that instantly is on all your social media, start following creatives, start following art that you love looking at, start following interesting creative people or creative genres, if it's pottery, painting, music, all those sorts of things, so that when you are scrolling, as we do, you are exposing yourself and giving yourself lots of beautiful images every single day and often that will start sparking something in you. Another big thing is to trust the inner you. So this is where I do a lot of work with people individually and in group, is that trust the inner you means, you hear your inner critic, or you may hear of messages that you received as a child or growing up from different adults about that you couldn't be an artist, or you're not creative, or you can't sing. Those sorts of things can still be deeply imprinted in our psyche. So it's, even if you start writing down, I am a creative, I'm going the creative things that I'm going to do. So it's just starting little steps of work around dispelling those messages and rewriting about your creative self and what your creative aspirations are. And one of the things, the next step to think about is to let go of the end result. Nothing has to be perfect. And Ralph Hortedy, which is one of New Zealand's infamous artists, I love that he wasn't worried about how people saw his art. And often he never wrote on the side of what they were, how he wanted people to interpret them. He often didn't go to the art openings because he just wanted people to experience his work. And I'm not suggesting that we all need to aim to be at that level, but what I take from that is that it's your expression of you, of what you want to express. And as time goes by, we get better at things and we try different things, and we might have a go at something else, and that's okay. It's all about giving it a go. And by doing that, it is looking at what creative opportunities are around. I mean, over the last couple of years, if you start looking, there's so many virtual and online creative groups that you can join, art classes, singing, ukulele classes, all those sorts of things. So they're available. And another depth that I think is wonderful is, looking at what's available locally, because it is also around starting to surround yourself with people, or have people in your life that are being creative too. You can bounce off one another. I mean, I go to ukulele classes, and what I couldn't get over is, again, to do with your brain, is I couldn't get over how I couldn't strum, do a chord, and sing all at the same time. It's like my brain was having major short-circuiting. I mean, now I can do that because I keep going often. So by relaying that story is that, giving things a go, often we need to give it a go for a while. And it might be that actually that's not my thing. and that's okay. It's keeping at it. And what you'll find is that the balance and the joy and the laughter that those experiences give you will just bring so much light, so much balance, so much joy into your life. Another key thing is creating your own creative space, like I mentioned at the beginning. Like I'm fortunate that I've created little spaces in my home that are only for me and for my writing and my work, and also where I can be creative, because there's nothing simpler than just having a creative space that you only have to add water to, if you're painting, if it's sewing, that your machines are always out, you don't have to pack them away. If you make pottery, that your utensils and everything are there, so that there's no barrier around doing it on the spur of the moment. And it's also a place where you can be undisturbed. And the final thing that I think that what starts happening from doing these steps is that we start laughing more. I saw a stat the other day that children naturally laugh like over 300 times a day. Isn't that amazing? And adults apparently only about 17. So, that's what I find about being with creative groups or doing classes, is there can be a lot of laughter. So it's learning to laugh at yourself. Laughter produces beautiful endorphins that give us an overall sense of well-being and joy. And that would be what my message, and I hope that you take away from, is that if you are feeling stuck, know that you want to be creative, is that these steps may be helpful in terms of getting you back in touch with that again.
Mandy, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing this amazing story. I love the fact that you were persistent in pursuing your creativity. You're right. A lot of women tend to give up on those dreams. Life takes over. You become a wife, you become a mother, and you
Yes.
put aside your passion for a while, like you said, but you can always go back to it. Now, creativity, I think everybody is creative, regardless of where you're from, your background, your upbringing. You just have to go back to being a child. Everybody is creative. So, as you were going through this journey and experiencing this newfound you through your studies, if there was somebody here who is thinking of pursuing further studies, pursuing a creative career, if you could give them 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what you have learned up to this point, what would that be?
Yeah, I would. I probably wouldn't do anything academic. Although people that do fine arts degrees do lots of art, so I take that back, because I've been to friends' art exhibitions that are the result of a masters in fine arts, and it's just incredible art. However, it is. I think the nugget would be do some classes. I know one of the classes that I did was down at Learning Connections in Wellington, actually, in New Zealand. And it so stretched me. It actually liberated me for these kinds of reasons. So you'd go there. That was on the edge of a bush. And the first time we went there, you'd go there for a day. So I used to work out how to have Wednesdays off to be able to do this. For one term, I did it. And the tasks were to go into the bush and get utensils, branches, leaves, anything. And that was what we're going to paint with that day. Like, we didn't paint with a brush. There was a huge, big area. There's lots of newsprint and lots of different big pots of paint. So you could use your hands, your feet. You really got stretched. So I think the nugget is to go where you get stretched. Another beautiful thing that happened from that experience was you did a lot of work with your non-dominant hand, which quickly, so you didn't have to think about it. So you kind of let go, you let your thinking go, and you started going more with your feeling. Yeah, there were lots of I from that one term of doing that, that's when I let go of the outcome, because it's about expressing yourself. So I think it would be joining classes or having a go, and not feeling that one class is going to be your be all and end all, because you'll learn lots of different things from different people. And not only the tutors, but also the people that are doing courses with you. And not only that, you hear about everyone has an amazing life and amazing things to share, that often comes out when we are being creative and expressive. So yeah, I think the online. I actually did an online art. It was called Painting Big, because I like using big canvases, and I did an online creative course, and I thought, wow, I wonder how this is going to work, and everyone was just in their studio, their little space, and it worked fabulously. In fact, it was so good you didn't have to pack everything up and put it in the car. And we met with this group online, and the tutor would show some different techniques, and we'd have a go at different things, and then we'd each perhaps share what we were doing, or we might have had to do a creative exercise. So I'm really convinced that joining online groups is just as rewarding, as being there in person.
It's incredible what has happened with COVID, in terms of transferring people to have these online experiences.
Yeah.
And you get to meet people internationally as well, from different parts of the world, different cultures.
That's
Definitely
right.
something that is worth pursuing.
Yeah. And I think
Now,
it is. The other nugget would be, Gertrude, would be, if, like, even if you don't think you're creative, and you're stuck with messages that you've received in your upbringing about that you don't have a creative bone in your body, or but you'll come to an impasse in your life and you just know there's something missing, is to have the courage to just extend yourself to do something different, like join a choir, join a music group, join your friend next door might be going to tennis or going to something. And I just really encourage you to give something a go, because it becomes a bit of a domino effect. It creates balance. So you're stepping out of your working life and all your roles, and you're tapping into your child ego state, and something beautiful is going to happen. Something you're going to, and you're going to start laughing more, and you're going to, and then one thing will lead to another. Like it's a journey, and what's great about the journey is just it's about get on the journey, and don't be worried about where you're going.
So now let me take you on let's call it a thought experiment.
Yeah.
I'm going to teleport you into the future. You're now 100 years old. You're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, reflecting back on this amazing life that you are living now. If the younger you could teleport into the future and have a conversation with that woman, what would you say to her based on how you're living your life right now?
Yeah. There's something about confidence, isn't there? I know from my we got lots of messages around not being too big for your boots. That only be spoken, when you're spoken to, kind of thing, which is, that balance between manners and respect of elders and those sorts of things, but I would say, be as big as your boots are and more. This is stepping into your power and your confidence is okay to do. And the other thing is to surround yourself by people who want you to do that. That aren't going to say, who do you think you are? Go, wow, isn't it amazing you're doing that? So there's something around the osmosis of being around people with a similar energy and motivation, because as you want people to do well, you need people that around you that want you to do well and want to see your confidence and want to see you shine. So I think, that would be the thing, thinking about it, is it's the people you surround yourself with, as well as the inner voice, your own inner voice. So two things is to keep saying, I can shine. It's okay to shine, and to have others around you who want to see you shine.
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
Mandy, how can people get hold of you? I have got your website scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
perfect.
there's
Oh, lovely. Yep. Yes, so
some
they can
there.
contact me through there. My email's there, my phone number's there. And my email's mandy@mandylacy.nz. Probably the best way. But I'm more than happy for people to give me a call as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. So if anybody out there is looking for some support, some mentoring for you to step into a space you haven't been comfortable stepping into around your creativity, please get hold of Mandy. She has really set an example of what is possible if you just believe in yourself. And like you said, it's a journey. You just have to take the first step.
Yeah.
And then the road reveals itself, and you find yourself in a completely different place than you were before you started.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mandy.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah. Been wonderful. It was another thing, and for me it was feeling a bit nervous. It was a bit scary. But that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. You feel the
Lovely.
fear and you do it anyway.
Anyway, well, wasn't she great, Susan? Yeah.
Thank you, Mandy.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I'll be back again with yet another amazing speaker. Have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks again, Mandy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making